All right, we're live again. LinkedIn Live. This is week 2, day 2. If we were to put sessions on this, we're in session 2. Jay, good morning. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We are, moving between houses a little bit. Luckily, I know you are as well, right? You're going between your girlfriend, lady, friend, and your house, right? Do you all
Yeah,
live close to each other? Is that an
yeah,
easy to get back and forth?
just around the corner, so it works.
It works. Okay. And yeah, and luckily actually my house where that I mentioned to you is on the market and we're selling, and it is literally like right across, almost right across the street. So it's actually, my boys and I have marked it off. It is 380 steps. So
Yeah.
I was over there today to make sure everything was good on that house, because we did have a flooded basement and things of that nature. So but I know you are on a hard stop today, and I want to make sure to get this. One thing we're doing a little different. We have we're using StreamYard. A number of people have reached out to us and asked the software that we're using to do these LinkedIn Lives. I have tried, maybe 6 or so months ago, we started and did a few of these, and I did a few of these with some other people. And I've kind of run maybe 3 or 4 different software packages that I've tried out. StreamYard, without question, seems to be the best. It just seems very intuitive. It's very easy, the audio, video. And I see a number of the people that I follow that do live episodes also use this. But I did pay this morning for their paid subscription, which allows us to use LinkedIn. It allows us to stream this up to YouTube. It allows us to do things like this and kind of change some banners at the bottom. And we do have Jason Wells' website up there. We should create one of these for the book that you have as well. So we're learning more about the technologies, how to use it, and how to kind of produce, I guess, a LinkedIn Live episode. But I appreciate everybody that has given us feedback, that has reached out to us, that has connected with us. I know you've had a number of people this week, Jay, that have reached out to you from just doing these, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So big shout out to you for just allowing me the platform. But yeah, definitely had some people reach out and connect through LinkedIn, and actually I feel like through some other platforms as well. So looking to build and see how we can explore those connections.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I said this yesterday, but I think it was actually Alan Stein, because I read it again this morning. He on LinkedIn has an image of a checkbox, like a checklist box, and it says better, and the one underneath it says worse. He was like, "Hey, we're all going to roll through this pandemic, and you've got to make a decision on what you're going to be doing. You're either going to get better or you're going to get worse." And so I think you and I are trying to take that proactive approach, even without the LinkedIn, even without you and I having these conversations. But it's just a matter of waking up every day and getting better and figuring out ways to get better. I have my 2 boys with me this morning, and we looked at them today, I looked at them today and said, man, we've got to figure out how to get better and have great days today. So we've covered, though, the past couple days, we've been covering. My book is here. We've been covering this, how successful people win. And it's not that we are doing a book report and that we're going to have a book club and that we're going to cover this book over the next, however long, this pandemic, and that we're quarantined up. That is not our intent at all right now. What it just struck me with this when I was going through this book and rereading it, these 11 traps people fall into. And really what it is, for those that may be listening for the first time, these traps are when you fail or you experience a loss. And those failures and losses, not always, but in my mind, most of the time, are happening when we're trying to get out of our comfort zone, trying to do something great, trying to be something great, trying to, push our lives to the next level. And all of a sudden we get beaten down by people, by circumstance, by whatever. And we fall into one of these traps that keep us in that comfort zone and stop us from growing and getting better. And as I read this, and it was like day 1 when you and I started going through these, I sat there and said, man, I think I use every single one of these things. I fall into each one of these traps. And so Jason and I just kind of decided to kind of work our way through it. We've done 4 of the 11, and we're going to get through 3 today. And the one I want to start off with and make sure, get your perspective off on, is the inspiration trap. Okay, so the first one, let me go through the first 4. The mistake trap, that I'm just afraid of doing something wrong. The fatigue trap is the loss and the losing and losses are just wearing me out, that I just end up being too tired to do them. The comparison trap are the losses that make us feel inferior to others. And the timing trap are the ones that just make us hesitate to take action. So some of these kind of fall into similar buckets as those first four, but the one that this is me, and the first four are me as well, but this is the inspiration trap. And what he says about this, and I really like, is that you just don't feel like doing it now. That the losses, the failures, they wind up just demotivating us to where we just are just like, we don't care anymore. And this kind of goes along with the next trap after this. But I mean, how often is that a checkbox for you? The inspiration trap?
That one is not a checkbox for me. Not defined as the way that he says it, which is you just don't feel like dealing with the losses. Yeah, that's not one. So I read something years ago and it really stuck with me, but it said greatness is spawned from inspiration or desperation. And that one really just hit me. And you would think that there would be a place where there would be both of those things. I mean, a little bit inspired, but maybe I am. But when I take those at the extreme, you think about greatness. People are either super duper inspired by what, their idea, their vision, or they're super desperate. I don't have any other choice but to make this thing happen. And when you think of it like that, that phrase really makes sense. So I'm kind of that's how I go about it, is not getting to a point where it's desperation and maybe I'm not ultra inspired, but merging those two of saying, okay, here's the vision, here's the idea, and how do I make those things happen? Not getting discouraged by the setbacks and the obstacles.
You said something yesterday and you kind of said it again a little bit, and I actually created a little thing for it. I'm going to throw this up here. This is how we are producing this show now with this paid StreamYard subscription. But here we go. I want your opinion on this. You said this yesterday, and I didn't jump back on it. Right there.
Yeah.
You said that yesterday. You said that you stopped using the word success, right, or successful, or whatever term of success, but you use the word greatness, and you did just say greatness instead of success. Why have you made that change?
Well, one, as I mentioned, and I think this is where we talked about it yesterday, is we each have our own personal definitions of success. So what that means to you as an individual is going to vary. And I guess it's the same thing with greatness. So it just boiled down to one of the topics that I speak about when I speak of my journey of purpose, and I'm talking about service. And so in a nutshell, I have friends that have played in the NBA, that have played in the NFL, that have played, or been quote unquote successful. And those have been the ones that have struggled most with unsatisfied, unhappy, and unfulfilled. But you look at society's definition of success, money, houses, vacations, all of those things that society says are successful, they have those things, but then they're unfulfilled and unhappy and unsatisfied. And so the original term was, and how I use it in my content, is success versus significance. So, and you and I have had this conversation before as well.
Right.
But success for me defined is you doing great for you, which I think is necessary. Like, you have to do great for yourself. But now the next level of success would be, for me, significance. Like, how am I taking my greatness and now having someone else be great because of my greatness? And so
you said that in one of our very first podcasts that we did probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Who is great because of my greatness?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a great quote. Is that a Jason Wells original, or is that a PGC?
That is a Jason Wells original.
It is a great quote. It really is. Yeah. Who is great because of my greatness? And I've stolen that from you and have used it a number of places. It really winds up being kind of the servant and service mindset, and being connected to people and having the shine be on people. So let me ask you this: you talk about these people from, the people that you're connected with, or the people that that have made it to a certain level where they're in the NFL, they're in the NBA, and they are unfulfilled. right? And there is something missing. What, in your perspective, every case is different. Everybody is different. Everybody
Sure.
is reaching for different things. But why is that? Why, when people get to that level and there's this monetary showering of things and they can get what they want and go where they want, things of that nature, but there's something missing from them. What do you think, in your perspective, is missing from people that get to that level that are still unfulfilled?
Yeah, it's if you're driven by money, there has to be a bigger purpose. And I know purpose is a buzzword. It's my own
Right.
personal anchor. But when I'm thinking about purpose, the biggest word of the acronym that I created for purpose is the S, service. Like, who are you doing it for? And if you're, and even for us to say, you have sons, I have sons, people have children. But even when you were to say, like, those are the reasons, Cam and Tyler are the reason why. They are my why. Okay, cool. But at some point, they're not going to be. At some point, they're going to be men who are off pursuing their own purpose. And now what? And so I do feel like your purpose is internal, which is why I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. And so here's a hypothetical question, and you're a smart guy. So
you hope I
do
answer
numbers
it.
stop?
Okay. Make sure I answer
Not a
this
trick
correctly
question.
then. All right. What's that?
Yeah.
What's the question?
Where do numbers stop?
Where do numbers stop?
Where do numbers stop? Yeah. Yes.
Numbers don't stop. Is that what you mean?
We're on that. Right.
I got you.
And what's the word that we apply for that?
Infinity, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Make sure I'm getting this right, because you're breaking up a little bit.
So yeah, I know we're on a little bit of a delay. And so if numbers are infinite and money is numbers, then money is infinite, right? That means you'll never get enough. You'll always be able to get more of it. So if money is your driving force, there's never going to be enough.
Right.
And so, like, what is your why? And I'm not saying that money can't even be a motivator, but what's your ultimate reason behind the money? My ultimate reason behind making as much money as possible is so I can give as much money as possible. So don't check me for saying I want to make this amount of money, because I know when I make this amount of money, I'm going to be able to give and serve this amount of money as well. So, but money can't be the driving force. It's the why behind the what.
It's the why behind the what. Okay. Good. You got all the lines today, right? That's perfect. It's the why behind the what, right? But that first trap, the inspiration, that doesn't, when you experience a loss or a failure, let me ask you this. So we've talked about this the past 5 days. Your first tryout for the Milwaukee Bucks. Did your first tryout for the Milwaukee Bucks or your first NBA tryout come after your eligibility was up at Indiana State?
Yes.
So like that next fall, that next October, September.
It was months. And so I finished my season in March, like most colleges do, and this opportunity was in June. So it was months.
Okay. And then when that was over and you essentially got I'm guessing a phone call or hey, coach wants to talk to you, or the GM wants to talk to you, and they sit there and say, hey, Jay, this isn't going to work out. Best of luck to you. Let us know how we can help you.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. When you sit there and wake up the next day, you never had that feeling of, man, I just don't feel like doing it right now. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I shouldn't be playing. I'm not good enough. I didn't reach my dream. You had the dream, right? Your year at Indiana State, your senior year, you had a great senior year. Yeah. And you probably, I would have to believe, sat there and said, I'm going to play in the league.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely a point where there was some reality behind it. But after all of that went down, there was never a day where there wasn't even a day where I thought my career was over. I knew at that point that there were other options as far as overseas, as far as, minor leagues and even in the States. And so my career being over wasn't even an option at that point. So yeah, it was definitely driven.
So you never did you fall into any of those? It sounds like when you got that phone call and you wake up the next day and you're sitting there at the edge of your bed getting ready, I'd be doing this. I'd be sitting there going, what now? What now?
Yeah.
Like, but you didn't fall into any of these traps, the mistake trap. Now you said you fell into a little bit of the mistake trap of like,
but
man, I can't do this anymore. You didn't fall into the comparison. I'm not Ray Allen. I'm not Kobe Bryant. You didn't fall into that. You didn't fall into a timing trap that this isn't the right time for you. You just said, what's next?
Yeah, literally.
Right?
Literally. And I feel like that's a lot of what I do with athletes who mentioned having a hard stop. So I actually meet with my teenage guys today, those brothers that we spoke about last week. And part of what we're going through is when people talk about Kobe Bryant and the Mamba mindset, all he did was put a name to a mentality that high performing athletes have. I'm not saying elite, I'm not saying NBA, high performing, meaning sometimes high performing even is on the college level. But those of us that have reached high performance, specifically in athletics, understand that all of those things kind of happen inherently. I don't know when I could ever say, hey, I developed a growth mindset or an abundance mindset or whatever you want to frame it. But I do know that being told you're not good enough, being put in a situation where you realize that you're not good enough, like all of those different obstacles just became opportunities. And that's literally the way that I explain it, is from a mindset standpoint, do you see obstacle or opportunity? And that is 100% a choice. That is a choice.
Yeah. Obstacle or opportunity. So when you woke up the next day, and I don't know how it works, I'm guessing at this point, did you have somebody representing you that knew what the next step was for you? Like, did you wake up the next day and said, okay, that didn't work out. I'm going to get on the phone with this guy, this lady, and they will know what I should be doing? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And what did they say? I'm just curious. I mean, I know it's not along the lines of what we're doing, but what was the next step for you? What did you do?
I mean, it from that point, it becomes now much like the college recruiting process. It becomes deciding and figuring out what level you play at, what level you're comfortable playing at. So do you want to play at that time, the then developmental league was just coming out. All of the teams were in the Southeast. Do you want to play here for financially $1,000 a month? Or do you want to go take your chances and play in an overseas team where you're away from home, you're away from family, you're away from everything you know, and you potentially make $3,000 a month? Here, you're obviously closer to being in the NBA under their vision. Over there, you can get lost in what they don't see, out of sight, out of mind. So it just becomes weighing down those opportunities, and that's what a good agent does. Is a good agent will give you the scenarios, give you the pros and cons of each, and then together you make a decision on what's best for everybody, not just the best financial situation, but the best overall situation, which is similar to everything else.
Right. What was that? And we'll get to the next trap here in a second, but what was the first step you took? Where did you go?
I went to Sweden. Sweden was my first job. So I was barely 21 years old. I didn't turn 21 years old until December of my senior year in college. So as a 21-year-old who hadn't been much out of the Midwest between Ohio and Indiana, in August of 1998, I found myself in international territory in somebody else's country, Stockholm, Sweden. Unbelievable experience, especially when you start talking about how westernized it is, how multicultural it is. Sweden was a phenomenal first place for me.
Great. So to go to the next trap, because we wanted to try to get through three of them today, so we can move on to other things the rest of our quarantine time. This is the one I fall into. Like, no question, this might be the number one failure trap I fall into. It is the rationalization trap. And what he says here is, maybe it's really not that important. So this losing here and failing here, allows us to lose perspective. So without question, this is probably 1 or 1A for me, that if I'm doing something and reaching towards something and it doesn't happen in the time frame I want, I just sit back and say, well, it's not that important. I can't do it. I don't have the resources. I just need to quit it, that I'm not going to achieve it. I would have been at the edge of the bed after trying out for the Bucks saying, I'm not good enough, right? I can't do it. I can't do it. No question, that beats me down the most, is that rationalization trap. But clearly for you, it wasn't, right? You knew that there was some still importance and value you can bring.
I mean, for me, it just comes down to what are your priorities? What are your priorities? And so much of these, George, this is where we're at as individuals. This is where we're at as a society, as a country, as a world even, is I feel like people have such a disconnection with your own authentic self. So what do you prioritize? And so if you're going to tell me that you prioritize something, there is no such thing as I'm giving up, or I whatever, just this rationalization, I must not be good enough, this might not be the time. I know he's reworded these in a couple different ways,
he has.
But so a very, very, very close coaching friend of mine, his name is Rod Baker, who's big time in the NBA. He's been an NBA assistant. He's been a G League head coach. He told me something one time that was an ultimate game changer for me. He said, "What's necessary is never impossible."
What's necessary
and when you think about just the simplicity, what's necessary is never impossible. So right now, I could easily get discouraged at the fact that, I'm not into the corporate world as much as I want, or I'm not even into the athletic space because, I haven't gotten Power 5 schools yet, or things like that. But I am a firm believer. I am prioritizing what I do and the service that I provide and the experience through that service, that I know that it's necessary. I know that it's necessary for athletes. I know that it's necessary for employees and employers and leaders. And I know that it's necessary for anybody who has aspirations of reaching their next level of greatness. Most people have that aspiration and don't necessarily know how. And I'm just sharing my experiences into the how, into the journey. I know that it's necessary. It may not be necessary for everybody, but because I know that it's necessary, I know that it's possible. I refuse to believe that it's impossible. So again, I'm not going to let those obstacles deter me. It's just not real. Every time I glance down, I see rationalization trap, but I see realization trap when I first look at it. And yeah, I think I could call it that as well. That's just not reality for me. I know that this is going to be influential and impactful in the world. It has no choice but to be. And that's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah, when you say that story, the first thing I think about is what we're dealing with right now with the pandemic and all this. It's one of these things. They're probably going to mess up and fail, but there's a necessity. There's an urgency to get this done, that when you mess up or fail, or whomever is working on, these vaccines and all this sort of stuff, like this has to happen. This has to happen. There is no, if you're going to fall into any of these sort of traps, you got to keep rolling, and you've got to, and I know they've got people around them, not coaches necessarily, but people around them saying, "Hey, we're just learning ways that don't work. We're getting closer. We're getting closer." And it's the same thing with you when you sit there and say, "Man, the necessity." Say it again. Say the exact phrase again. That Rod Baker told you.
What's necessary is never impossible.
Yeah, this is necessary. It is necessary that we find a vaccine for all this. It's necessary, and it's urgent, and it's not impossible. It's not impossible. But just in terms of me and the small little things that I deal with on a daily basis, I guess you stop with the necessity to it, right? All of a sudden you sit there and say, well, this isn't a necessity. Me achieving that goal and getting to the next level professionally, or monetary, whatever it is, right? I think me, it's not a necessity, right? Because I failed at it, right? And it stops being that. So, but it allows us to lose perspective. But if you're driven by it and have people around you like you have and did and continue to do, then you keep rolling with it. This is an interesting one, this last one. And I know you have a hard stop and we got to leave in a few minutes. The perfection trap. Okay. And got these little banners here. We paid for them. We'll throw them up. Right. The perfection trap. Okay. And this may be, kind of in the same bucket as some of these other ones, but there's a best way to do it. And this isn't it. And I have to figure out what the best way to do this before I start. So you're sitting there saying, hey, I'm going to do this. Like you. This is the example I'll give, and it may not be the best example, but this is the difference between you and me. You wanted to write a book. And I think you probably just sat down one day and started writing. And I'm sitting down and I'm like, man, that would be fun to do. That'd be a great accomplishment. That would be something to be proud of and to have out there and be able to distribute content and, and some thoughts to people. And I haven't written a word because things may have to be perfect, or I might have other traps I'm in. But the perfection trap of this is exactly what he says. The best way to do it. And I have to find that before I start. You didn't try to figure that out. You just started going.
Yeah. But we all fall into these in our own various ways. So thank you for that compliment. And yeah, when it came down to writing the book, yes, I made a decision to write. And I actually didn't sit down to write a book. I was just spilling out all of this stuff that was in my head. But here's where I do, and this is real life right now, March 24th, 2020. The struggle for me is content. And so I have this vision of what I want content to look like. I want it to be professionally edited and this type of design and all of that. And I struggle with what's referred to as user-generated content. So me holding up my phone on an Instagram live or something like that, I struggle with that because I want it to be, my vision is I want it to be produced, professionally produced. And so I've given myself this obstacle. I see this obstacle of, what content looks like. And I had a very, very, very informative conversation just last night about you just got to do it, especially at these times. You just have to do it. And so all of these high performers that we are connected to in various different ways, whether it be through third party or directly, they all have the same principles in common. The guy said this to me last week. They're like, yeah, we were watching this video and it just seemed like everybody was saying the same thing. Well, that's because they are. So, but these high performers that we are connected to, they all say some version of fail early, fail often. Like they're telling you to fail. They're like this. So people know, again, goes back to the title of the book, the things we know but do not do. We know that we should be searching for failure because those failures are just going to propel us to our greatness. However, most people don't know how, or I love the way that we're going through this Maxwell stuff. They do know how, and they're just caught up into these different traps. But I feel like the how is okay, you're telling me to fail forward. How? Well, now we combine the two. Realize that you're in these traps.
Yep.
And how can you get yourself out of these traps as quickly as possible?
That's the key right there. That's what we actually really haven't spent a ton of time on. And I'm not sure I'm the one to sit here with great strategies, on how to get out of these traps. But these, and there might be more. And I know he's wording things a little different to come up with 11 when he probably has 6, but which is fine. But I'm sitting there going, man, we all experience. So you go through all these things. If you're listening on LinkedIn, like go through all of these and just sit there and say, yeah, as I fail, because that is true. Everything we listen to, Jason, it's fail, like just give effort, give action, like fail, learn. It's okay. Create a safe environment, all that sort of stuff. But the reality is you're going to fall into one of these traps. And if you're in this trap, you're going to be stuck. And yes, I get stuck, man. If I could have conquered some of these and got my way out of some of these, who knows where I could be and what I could be doing and who I could be impacting and things like that. But to your point from this week, and I'm not going to word it exactly right, so correct me, but I'm exactly where I should be, right? Isn't that something that's kind of exactly what you said? So, but those, do you fall into that? So you do fall into the perfection, because that's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say it the way you said it. And I know I'm going to cut us off in 3 minutes, but it's interesting you say that because I know the content that you're creating does seem very click record, put it out there. These are the things I'm thinking about and doing it. But is there a part of you that is like, it's got to be done better. It's got to be produced better. It needs to be written out. It needs to be planned. Like, so are you dealing with that trap?
I am dealing with that trap. Literally as we speak, it is, I bought the tripod with the light on it, the ring light. I did all of that, and I struggled to set the camera up and record it myself. Like, we're even at a point now to where, like, and the struggle for me is internal, but the struggle for me is I hate talking to a camera. So I feel more comfortable talking to a person. So even if I set her up where she was right next to the camera and I can feel like I'm talking to her versus this camera, it puts me in a better place. So there's so many different things, but the end of the day still boils down to do it.
Yeah. And it's not just creating content or being on YouTube. It's not any of that. It's about it's about doing great things at your work, with your teams, with your families, with one another, with your spouse, doing all that. And just say, you know what, let's just go. Let's just figure this out, and let's figure it out together, and taking the action, which is my word of the year. So let's just recap real quick. I got 2 minutes. I told you I'd get you out of here at 10:55, and I know you have things to do and appreciate your time. The mistake trap, what holds us back. The fatigue trap, losses wear us out. The comparison trap, losses cause us to feel inferior to others. The timing trap, losses will just make us hesitate. The realization trap, the losses allow us to lose perspective on where we want to be. The inspiration trap, losses will just demotivate us. And the perfection trap, the losses or failures will cause us to question ourselves. Like those, and some of those can be bucket up and grouped together, but I think they're real. And I think, to your point, Jason, the one thing I wish, and maybe we circle back. We apparently are going to have some time here, but man, it's important to figure out how to get out of these traps. And maybe that's individual, right? Maybe it's simple. I don't know. If it were simple, it's one of those simple, hard things, right, that you talk about.
Simple, but not easy.
It's simple, but not easy, right? Yeah, it's simple, but not easy. If we're going to sit there for you to put you on it, like, man, Jason, this is not just like, I think you're phenomenal at creating content. I think when you do your Instagram, and when you were out at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, running and walking the streets of Del Mar Loop and recording things and going, I was like, man, these are awesome. And I watched them first thing every morning. But, you just got it, but it's hard for you, right? That might be hard for you, but from my perspective, it was awesome. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to throw this up here. We are going to keep going. What we're going to do, there's jasonwells.com. You can see it on the screen on YouTube and LinkedIn. We do have a paid subscription now with this software package, StreamYard. So we are able to stream to other places. I ask you to reach out to Jason on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn, which a number of people have done. And listen, right now we have time. We have time to improve. We have time to connect. We have time to impact. We have time to do a better job with our children, with our spouses, with our bosses. I just encourage us all to take advantage of this time. So that being said, reach out on LinkedIn to me and Jason. I had 3 or 4 conversations yesterday that were more than, hey, thanks, thumbs up emojis and all that, but actual conversations with people that reached out to me on LinkedIn. I hope, Jason, you're experiencing the same thing. But reach out to Jason there. We are also, because of this software package, we are also able to take the video and do some things with it. We're actually able to take the audio and do some things with it. So this is actually part of our Out from the Cube podcast. We're up to episode 140, 145, somewhere in there. We've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, I should say. So it's been a while. But Jason, we'll get back to this tomorrow. I know you have some things going on today. I hope things continue to go well for you. And please reach out to Jason on LinkedIn or through his website. Okay, everybody take care. Thanks, Jay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.